It's going to be like a classic ribbon pour. So let's see how that goes. Hey everybody, it's Anna. Welcome back to my Fluid Art channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today's video is going to be a lot of fun because I'm going to be painting, but I'm also going to give you a little peek at the art that my husband does. He is a knife maker. I don't know how many of you have seen the show Forged in Fire, which is about bladesmiths. It's about taking metal, heating it up in a forge, hitting it with a hammer, and making a beautiful blade, a knife, a hatchet, a sword, out of it. So my husband, he got into knife making when he was a teenager, and then when he went to college he had to stop for quite a long time, but he's been back into it now for a few years and he just loves it. So my cousin Mike also forges with him, and this year for their birthdays they made a big piece of Damascus steel, which is layered steel, and using different types of steel, you stack it in layers, you squish it down, you stack it again, squish it down, and it makes this beautiful layered pattern, almost like puff pastry. You know how it's got layers, like a croissant? And very similar to fluid art also. We do lots of things with layers. But they're making a piece of Damascus steel, and then he's going to twist it to put an extra cool pattern into the steel, and then he's going to make a knife out of it. And then I'm going to do a triptych inspired by his Damascus steel knife. Sounds pretty fun, right? Let's head out to his shop.
So we've been soaking this billet of steel for almost an hour. It is nearly at welding temperature, and in just a minute we're going to pull it out and take it to the press and set our forge welds. Here we go. Okay, so now what we have is a block that's about 8 inches by 3 inches by 1.5 inches, and we're going to start drawing this out to make it 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches by about 16 inches. So we're going to use a combination of the press and the heat from the forge to make that happen. It's going to be exciting. Another heat. Okay. Woo! Good job.
We're ready to heat treat now, so this blade is ground and ready to go in the oven at 1550 degrees. All right, so blade is ground, hand sanded, file worked on the spine, handle material has been fit up, but now we're ready for the final etch. It's about to go into ferric chloride to bring out that Damascus pattern.
Wasn't that a cool process to watch? I just think it's crazy how they take that giant piece of steel, they squish it down, they stretch it out, and then they cut it into two different billets is what they're called. So Josh made a knife with one and Mike made a knife with one, and so they each have their own piece of Damascus to work with. And I just think the pattern that came out after he did the acid etch at the end, so pretty. So my paintings today are inspired by that. I'm going to be using a split cup to make some nice layers, and I have 4 colors here. So Payne's gray, this is my only like solid paint color. So this, it looks quite bluish and it looks lighter than it's going to be. It will dry practically black. And then I have 3 metallics. So I have Pearlessence, which is metallic white. I have metallic silver. And then I have this, which is metallic silver with some black mica powder added to it to make sort of a gunmetal gray. So I'm hoping that by using all of these shades, it's going to give a very metallic, I mean, they're metallic, but something that looks very much like this patterned steel. So let's go ahead and layer up the split cup. I'm putting the Payne's gray on one of the sides because I want it to be prominent. By the way, my paint is mixed with Floetrol, US Floetrol. Because this is all tube paint, it's about 1 part paint to 3 parts Floetrol. And then I added a little bit of water to get it to, I would call it a medium to a medium thick consistency. So it flows very well, but it holds a mound for a good couple seconds before it completely disappears. So it's still thinner than like a bloom pour for sure. But it is thicker than a lot of other techniques, mostly because I don't want the paint to do a lot of mixing. I'm using a split cup to help keep the colors separate, but I want the paint to be thick enough that as I pour it out, it's not going to flow and do a lot of mixing. A little bit of interacting is going to be fine, but what we want is crisp layers. So we've got the dark ones on the outsides and the light ones in the middle. And we'll see what kind of effect that gives us. All right, so I have 3 panels and I'm going to pour them all out a little bit differently because the cool thing about Damascus steel is you can do different things to the steel to create different patterns. So what they did that you just saw is they twisted the bar so that all of those layers get a twisted pattern in it. There's different things that you can do though, and I'm going to try as I pour it out to make a couple different kind of patterns as if it was different types of Damascus steel. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to make kind of like figure 8 patterns, so there's lots of crossover. So it should look kind of braided, twisted. Should be fun. Let's go. Going to move up higher so that the layers are smaller. Put some out on the edges to help it cover. Well, that's really cool. Definitely have kind of a braided design, so I like that. I'm going to give it a quick torch before I stretch it to pop some of these air bubbles that I'm seeing. Okay, let's tilt it out. I'm going to go this way first. Excellent. Okay. And I'm going to work on stretching it a bit side to side as I send it down the canvas. Because I don't want it to look weird with the braid only in the middle. Because we've got such big layers down there at the one side, I want to stretch it back down so that it's all a little bit more uniform. Okay. That is pretty cool. That corner covered. Well, my Payne's gray sunk for sure, which I thought might happen. Payne's gray is a particularly dense color, so often, even if you have it mixed to the same consistency as your other paints, it will tend to kind of sink underneath them. So it's actually kind of cool because you can see it sinking under the silver, and so you can see kind of a darker, bluer shadow underneath. So I do think that as the whole thing dries, that there will still be that dark edge in there, but it's not going to be quite as dark as solid Payne's gray. But that'll be okay. So this is cool. I like that crisscross pattern. For this next one, I'm going to do it different, and I haven't really planned out how I'm going to do it, but I need to add some more paint to my split cup because I used pretty much an entire cup. Great. Okay, let me torch this one more time. So this one, I'm just going to pour out really randomly. It's going to be like a classic ribbon pour where I just go all over the place. So let's see how that goes. Well, that's a nice random pattern Damascus. I'm going to cover my corners ahead of time here, just to make it easier as I'm tilting. All right, let's move this out of the way so it doesn't get messy. Let's stretch this out. Oh, that's really cool. I really like this random pattern. So again, I'm going to stretch it side to side, walking it down the canvas. You see that blob section right down near the bottom? That's an area where there was not enough paint, and so there isn't a clear design because it all kind of got squashed. So I'm going to send that off down the end, or pretty close to it. Yeah, let's get it all the way off. Great. And this corner too, that's a weird looking piece of Payne's gray. Okay. And now we'll start bringing it back. And we'll take the good pattern that we have and get it nicely centered. I think I like that. So there's our second panel. Cool. I love how different those are. This one's very contrived, this one's very random. They both do resemble Damascus steel. I wish I had more dark, because as you saw from the actual blade, it got quite dark. But I think it'll be really cool, and the metallic will be extra shiny. So, alright, torch it. Okay, so for this next one, I've been thinking about how to do this because there's different Damascus patterns. There's one called Raindrop, which is like you actually drill into it and it makes these round patterns in it, very much like a chameleon cell or something. I'm not going to do chameleon cells. I thought about doing like tiny little ring pores to be like those raindrop sections, but that also sounds like it would be really time consuming, and also it wouldn't really fit with the pattern that we've got going on in these two panels. So I'm going to do one that's more like, I'm going to try for like a ladder pattern Damascus, which is where it's like horizontal lines. It ends up looking kind of sawtooth-like with, you know, zigzag pattern. So I'm going to go for a zigzag kind of a pour to see whether I can get any of that nice ladder Damascus pattern. Another great way of getting that pattern, which I thought about, would be to do a waterfall pour, you know, where you jiggle it down this way. But for that, it wouldn't be the split cup, it would be a stacked cup, and so it would end up with colors not so clean and defined as with this. So I did not do it that way, but that would make a really cool ladder pattern. So, something for me to think about. Okay, so I'm going to do kind of back and forth this way, traveling down. So it's, yeah, I don't know exactly how to describe it. Zigzagging my way down. Okay, I think I have enough of the zigzag. Just need to get some extra paint on the canvas. Well, this looks cool. I do like that horizontal. And you get more of the Payne's gray on this side and more of... Yeah, no, I like that a lot. So I'm going to cover the corners again because that worked well. Here we go. Starting with just a... Actually, I want to torch first, so these air bubbles don't get in the way of the paint moving. There we go. Now we can tilt. Cool. I love this jaggedy Payne's gray area, so I want to make sure I don't lose too much of that. In fact, I'm going to pour along this edge just to make sure that I can cover the canvas without losing all that wonderful design. Okay. Very carefully pulling it down and back. Oh, I've lost a lot of it, but not all of it. not all of it. I kind of like that wave that it's got right now. Yeah, that's very aesthetically pleasing. Okay, let me clean my hands and then I'll see if anything else needs to happen. Yeah, I really like this one actually. I like that you can see more of the Payne's gray over here. Even though we lost a lot of it, we still definitely have it. I like the bit of swoop. It's very cool. Yeah, this is a really neat set of 3 because we have 3 different patterns, but clearly it's all the same colors and it's all laid out in a similar way. So there's a nice kind of unity even though it's different. And it'll probably be like this because this one is more different than these two. So it'll probably be arranged more or less like this. But I think I'm happy with this. Let me give you a close-up. Okay, here we go. So pretty cool triptych here. We'll start over with the sort of braided pattern. It's going to be so shiny when all those metallics pop. We got some little bubbles there from the air bubbles. If I had mixed my paints a day ahead, we might have had less air bubbles. I don't mind. Little bits of the Payne's gray peeking through there. We'll see how well that shows. And then this is just the random ribbon pour pattern. Got a little squish there in the middle, but I think that one looks really cool. And then to this one, the nice back and forth, it ended up being very much horizontal lines, but I do like that we get to see the Payne's gray there. And I like the subtle swoop that we've got down here. So lots of cool layers in there. Can't wait to see how those metallics shine when they're dry. So yeah, I will show you how these look when they're dry. Okay, here they are all dry. First of all, my goodness, look how metallic and shimmery that is. That is exactly what I wanted. Very, very metal looking, but different shades of the metallics. So you might notice over on this one, I added in some Payne's gray because there were some of those dark blobs that just looked strange. So I just brush painted some of those lines to make that braided pattern stand out a little bit better. And so I like the way that looks more now. And then also on this one, I just added a little bit of Payne's gray on some of those swoops to add some definition and fix a couple areas where the Payne's gray looked a little bit more distracting instead of cool. This one is just perfect. I didn't have to do anything to this. I love how perfect it ended up. So really, really cool. And what's neat is that depending on how the light shines on it, it's either very bright or it's quite dark. So that's a neat feature to that as well. Thanks so much for joining me for this special crossover painting video. I hope you enjoyed watching the knife making as much as I did. Be sure to check out my husband's website. It is bluntknives.com, and that knife that he made might just be available for sale very soon, so check that out if you're curious. I hope this video inspired you to try something new, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys!